Good evening. It's 6 o'clock, Tuesday, February the 16th. This is the regular meeting of the City of Menifee Parks, Recreation, and Trails Commission. And I'd like to call this meeting to order, and Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Commissioner Holcomb,
Here.
Commission Chair Gidroyce,
Here.
Commissioner Vice Chair, Commissioner Rosen,
Here.
and Commissioner Zimmerman.
I'm here.
And tonight, Commissioner Croy is not here. He told us he would not be able to attend the meeting. So moving along, I would like to ask Commissioner Zimmerman to please lead us in the flag salute.
Certainly be my pleasure. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have any presentations tonight?
No.
And then moving on to item 5, approval of the meeting minutes. Do we have any changes that need to be made to the minutes or any feedback?
Hearing none, I will move that we accept the minutes of February 2nd as is.
And, do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have the motion and the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then item number 6, agenda approval or modifications. Are there any modifications?
No.
Okay, in which case we are approved. Item 7, public comments. Any public commenters?
None.
More of these
Okay,
people.
we're moving well along. Discussion items, 8.1, amendment to the Menifee Municipal Code, Chapter 9.55 pertaining to Quimby and mitigation fees. Director Lennox.
Thank you, and good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This item is being brought back to you as a result of the joint workshop you held with the Planning Commission a couple weeks ago, and it is identical to the item you heard, I believe, over a month ago. Nothing has changed. This proposes amendment to the Quimby ordinance by removing the section relative to the dedication of excess, or crediting and banking of excess park dedication acres. Rather than go through it all again, I think you've heard it many times. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Just let you know that if approved or recommended for approval by the Commission tonight, the next step would be to place this on the Planning Commission as a public hearing, and then after that, if they support, as they said they would during the joint workshop, it would move on to the City Council for a first read and then a second read before adoption.
Commissioner Zimmerman.
Thank you. So I'd like to just encourage staff to include the commission's findings when this goes to not only Planning Commission, but to City Council. I want to make sure that they are also seeing the same report.
It definitely will.
Thank you.
Aren't you going to make a motion?
I would just want a couple of housekeeping items, if I may. I was looking at the paperwork, and page 7, at the top of it, it says 3 acres of park area per 1,000. Is that just something we've got to bring up to speed? I thought it was maybe a carry forward from a... And I saw it also at the top of page 9, the same thing. I would think those both should say 5.
I will make the change when this moves forward.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Hang on a second. So
Yeah, I sat down and read it earlier.
It says 3 acres of park per 1,000, it should be 5.
but what that's saying is the amount of, you're at the top of page 7, right? And it says the amount of existing park area in the city exceeds 3 acres,
But that's not true.
and that's not correct. And that shouldn't be 5 either. That should be 1.8 or whatever it is.
You're right.
1.86 or 7, I forget.
What was it, 1.68? I think Rick did the math.
Yeah,
Sorry about that, Robert.
1.68, that's right.
Is that correct, Robert?
Yeah, I think similar to what you would find in a resolution or an ordinance, this is the disclosures of the whereases. I would actually recommend striking that whole sentence because this ordinance is intended to apply no matter what time or point in time it's read. And so today it might be 1.18, but in a year it could be in a better condition, and then the ordinance would be out of date. So I would recommend striking that, or maybe replacing it with saying that the city's goal is to achieve 5 acres per thousand.
Oh, I agree with that.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's aim for that. And then, oh, somebody's blinking over here. Oh, that's yourself. And also then on page 9, it says the neighborhood in which the fees are to be expended has fewer than 3 acres of park area per thousand members of the neighborhood population. Again, to me, that should have said 5. If everybody else will take a look and see if they agree or disagree. Because it says if the following conditions are met on the page preceding it.
Yes, this, I think you're correct, Chair, that this particular clause is identifying that in this situation where there is less than 5 acres per thousand, then the Quimby requirement would be applied. So you're correct, this should
That
state 5.
Should state 5, okay. If everybody's in agreement, then I would like to see if we have any further comments or we have a motion on this.
Let's just make sure there's nothing else. Because you're catching some, you got some good catches there, Mr. Chair.
I believe those are the only sections where they highlight what that ratio is to be.
Yeah.
There is one before that, but it actually does state 5. And it is it's in, on page 8, under section 9.55.040.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
that looks good.
all right. So I'll go ahead and make that motion that we recommend to the Planning Commission a resolution to remove 955.115, the procedure for credit of excess park dedication.
And I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much. That moves us over to item 8.2, park dedication, minimum park size policy. Director Lennox?
Thank you, Chair. And this actually did also come out of the workshop, joint workshop with the Planning Commission. As you might recall, toward the end of the workshop, it brought up to the attention of both commissions that there might be a need to identify a minimum acreage for dedication, because currently we don't have something set hard in policy. Staff applies sort of a best practice rule of thumb when reviewing applications, and if there were a policy, it would be a lot easier for developers coming in the door to know right away what the expectation is without having to guess what staff's assessment or review will yield. And so what I've done is provide a table within the staff report that would set those thresholds, and I will go over them very briefly, and to give you really a general understanding of what this means. There is when a developer comes in and they are proposing to dedicate park land, there is the option to encourage that developer to either make that facility an HOA facility or make it a city facility that would be funded either by the city's special tax district that it's annexing into, or the general fund if there is no identified funding source. So as a result, this table, this matrix, could be used to direct the developer and to staff where that assignment would occur. So in this case, I'll go down the list here. When a facility is being proposed that is anywhere between 0 to 3 acres, staff's recommendation is that be dedication as an HOA facility, and it would fall into the category of a pocket park or a mini park. Yes.
I just want to stop you for 1 second. I was looking also at these, and you recommended 0 to 3, but the master plan, which is in further back, talks 0 to 2. So should we adhere to the master plan or the new recommendation? It has to come up too.
No, and the reason why there's a the difference between the two is the master plan is identifying the size of parks and the category of that type of park, not the size of park and who takes care of it. We're really talking about who it gets dedicated to, not the category of it. So when you look at 0 to 3 acres, that could be several different types of parks. And so you see on the table, 0 to 3 could be a pocket park, a mini park, or a neighborhood park,
I see. Okay.
right? So the recommendation here is to enforce an HOA dedication for those sizes of parks, 0 to 3 acres, pocket, mini, or neighborhood park. Then for anything that's a 0 to 3 acres that has a special use or linear park with fitness amenities, have that be a dedication to city park. So I'm going to stop there and see if there's questions on those distinctions, because the special use per the master plan implies that independent of size, there is a unique feature or amenity in that facility that's serving a general benefit to a larger audience. So I'll use an example. That could be something like a amphitheater. That could be something like a community center. Both of those amenities could fit in a 3-acre space. And so we know that that's something on the master plan that is identified as a deficit area for facilities, and as such, we would want the city to have that resource under their own purview.
On that subject, I see you mentioned linear park trail with fitness amenities. It could also then be just a trail, a recreational trail.
So a trail would have to coincide with the city's trail plan, and that's why I did not include it here. Trail would be, we get trail submittals all the time, and so it only becomes a city trail if it coincides with the city's current trail plan.
Would the trail be a linear park?
No, I'm glad you asked that. It becomes a linear park if there are specific amenities included. Fitness equipment being one, benches, trash receptacles, and walkway lighting. Those, and of course,
Those features.
yeah, those
A
features.
trail with just a fence and some DG wouldn't count.
No, it would not.
Okay. Commissioner Holcomb?
Yes, does the city have a minimum number of pocket parks that we'll accept, that we want to take on because of the costs associated with it?
So that is actually based off the research done by the consultant who put together our master plan. And attached to your staff report, you'll see where the shortfalls exist right now, where the deficits exist. What they determined is that, and if I can point you to the page 61 of the master plan, the excerpt of the master plan, what you'll see here is a list of amenities where we have sufficient numbers of those, and areas where we don't have enough. Typically, for example, in a mini park, you will find an abundance of tot lots. So based off the research provided by, in the master plan, we actually are very close to our tot lot threshold. We don't necessarily need a lot more tot lots. We would gladly accept them in a larger facility that serves a new community, but if we were going to have just a pocket park put in, and the main feature being a tot lot, the suggestion would be we don't need that because we already have an overabundance of them throughout the rest of the city.
Question concerning ball fields. How many acres do we need to have minimum to have a baseball field or something of that kind?
Sure. Realistically, a ball field could fit on a park that is 3 acres. It's a function of design, right? And it becomes difficult because a lot of the dedications that come in for residential communities, they are right up against homes. And so there's not a lot of room. So even though I say 3 acres could accommodate a ball field, realistically, a 5 acre plus is better suited to allow enough buffer around the ball field, field of play, so that you don't have balls flying into people's yards or hitting cars or things like that,
And
so.
place for people to park and have stage their equipment.
Exactly.
Okay. Commissioner Zimmerman.
Thank you. And what I like seeing is some of these larger parks that have 4 ball fields together or something like that. It's kind of an economy of scale thing where if you're going to have equipment there for taking care of ball fields instead of having all the equipment there for 1 ball field, if you've got 4 ball fields, same equipment, you're getting a little bit more bang for your buck, equipment and maintenance wise and that sort of thing. So bigger parks, more ball fields, better.
And I think that's actually good to point out as we continue through that table. You'll see that the incentive here for the developer and their dedication is larger, right? Propose a larger facility and the city will be more willing to take that on. So as you can see, as it goes down, anything greater than or equal to 5 most definitely would be a city facility. As you get to the lower end, there's more question, right? It could be HOA, it could be city. If it's going to be a special use facility, then it could be city. If it's just going to be a regular tot lot with a drinking fountain or something like that, then it most definitely would be HOA. And so as I continue down, 3.1 through 4.9 acres, if those parks are neighborhood and or linear parks, they would be considered HOA. 3.1 to 4.9 that have neighborhood with special use in it, or linear park with trail and fitness amenities in it, then it would be a city facility. And then finally, what we are all hoping to get in all of our dedications is anything over 5 acres that includes pretty much every type of use would be considered a city facility for dedication. So this is what staff's proposed, although we can certainly modify this with feedback from the commission before we make it a formal policy. This is the template, and we certainly can adjust it as needed. I do want to highlight, though, that per state law, anytime a developer wants to dedicate open space or develop park space to a city as part of a project, if it's an HOA facility, regardless of the size, we are obligated to provide that developer with some sort of credit. It doesn't, the state code gives us flexibility to determine what that credit amount be. Most cities in Southern California have elected to apply or award up to 50% credit for HOA facilities that do not have a fence, meaning the general public can use them at any time. They're not discouraged, but it is operated and maintained by the HOA within that community. So that's the rule of thumb we've been using. It would become more formal in this policy as well. Independent of the size of the facility, if it's open to the public and has no fences, they would receive 50% credit toward their QUIMBY obligation.
And if it does have a fence, it
No.
doesn't count?
No credit at all.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to verify.
So then a facility like that could be used by a baseball team or a soccer league or something like that without any objection by the HOA?
Correct, as long as it's open to the public. HOAs, through their CC&Rs, may have the ability to apply certain use restrictions, just like we do in our parks,
Such as hours?
fees, those sorts of things for
Lighting.
organized play. But nonetheless, drop-in play would be open to the public.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Zimmerman.
Thank you. So, I don't think we've had this situation, but what happens if there's a community that has a guard gate entrance, it's a private community, and it's got a park in it that should be public, or they want credits? How does that work if you can't get into the community?
That's considered a fenced park as well.
Okay.
So that it's exclusive to the membership within. The general public can't gain access.
Okay, thanks. Guess it makes sense.
Okay, Commissioner
Yeah, I
Rosen.
just wanted to ask one question. Was that the reason that Ryland put a park outside of the Oasis? Literally outside the gate? They put that Aldergate Park just above the fence. And they put the fence in, so, yeah, I mean, they did this deliberately.
It predates me, so I don't know how that came
But it
down.
just seems like that would be the reason.
It could have been. It could have been.
It might have been their logic.
And they, of course, well, unfortunately, they gave it to Valley Way.
It was annexed into the LMD,
system.
yes.
Okay, we didn't have a city at the time. Well, let's get back to the discussion of the table, and I'd like to open that up for everybody to give their input. In fact, maybe we could just do a roundtable on this. Aldi, what do you think?
Yes, understanding that we are not the planning commission or any other body within the city here, Robert, from your experience, would these numbers present any constraints on builders or developers coming into the city?
No, I don't think it would at all. In fact, it helps them make decisions more quickly. A lot of times they become frustrated not knowing, as they submit their applications, prepare their applications, not knowing what to expect. And they feel like they're wasting their money putting together plans, plot plans that ultimately make it completely changed after the first round of review. This gives them some certainty in terms of cost to them when they get down to actually constructing. I don't believe it does either, because they will look at their budgets for both their infrastructure outlay and for their capital, for their upfront capital to put these facilities in the ground and determine if it's worth their while. They weigh that against the profit margin they would stand to make when they sell all those units. And then the ongoing maintenance, they can look at whether they've gotten close to the 2% limitation on their tax district amount. And if they have, then they can certainly move that facility toward an HOA function instead. All of this helps them in their budgeting process. So,
Anything more on that? Okay. It would seem to me that if we adopt this, we ought to have it put into the master plan.
so the benefit in this is that of not putting in the master plan is you will be able to change this on the fly. It just needs to come back as a policy amendment. The master plan, though, would need to be something that, if you changed, would have to go back to Planning Commission and to City Council as a formal amendment. And luckily, it doesn't require an amendment to the general plan. However, it does have a process that takes some time. Even with a policy as proposed here, it's still enforceable. We don't have to, we don't leave ourselves exposed to challenges by developers. As long as we have something on the books that says this is the rule, then we're fine.
So this is not quite an ordinance?
Correct. We could actually take this forward as a resolution if we wanted to, which is just short of what we did for the master
And that
plan.
would be a council resolution. We'd make the recommendation, they make it a resolution?
It may not even need that. It may only need to be a planning commission resolution once agreed to by this body.
Okay, thank you for that. Commissioner Zimmerman?
Thank you. So, just so I know, what tonight we're going to do is recommend that the table be adopted, but it'll be by the city council has the authority, not us.
Well, I think ultimately the city council would have the authority to formally adopt the policy. But yes, no matter what, I recommend that this go forward to planning commission so that, as I said during the workshop, there will be applications they receive first. And there have been documented cases where they've said, well, we'd like to see a small tot lot here. This will make them think twice and say, well, no, we remember that policy. Let's leave this up to the Parks Commission, or let's not even propose that right now, or here's the rule, applicant, make sure you follow it.
So, pardon me for jumping in, so this would be for reference to them, not so that they have some superior judgment as to whether it should go to council to be talked about?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And then the other thing I was thinking is, somewhere in those rules for the applicants, it still should say that the city or the community services director still maintains or retains the ability to not accept, I guess. So in other words, I don't want them to feel like, hey, we qualify because this table shows that we're a special use and we think that some oddball thing is a special use, but you may not agree with it. So retain the ability to disallow applicants or whatever.
Supersede the policy in the
Your
best
di-
interest
it's-
of,
It comes down to your discretion and whether or not it qualifies as a special use, because
Yeah, it's true.
they may come up with something really wacky and feel like it
right?
qualifies.
At the
Yeah.
end of the day, if that happens, I'd also ask that it be redirected to this body for consideration also.
And I agree with that, yeah.
I think what might be good in that resolution when it gets formed is that we can put in there a section that speaks to an appeal process, right? So if staff has said, well, it meets the table, the developer doesn't like that answer, or if staff has said, we have too many of those facilities, so we don't want that. If they want to appeal it, you'd be the first body that gets to hear that appeal.
Okay.
So we can write that in.
Okay,
Yeah, that's a great idea.
so, like you see in the master plan, we have an inventory, we can take that as a point of reference.
I know there's a lot of things out there that we haven't seen yet, Frisbee golf and stuff like that, and you just never know what might be proposed, and we need to be able to have some discretion.
Address that. Commissioner
Yeah,
Rosen?
you always need to have
Yeah,
the ability to be able to say yes or no on something, even if it is on a table.
there was something novel.
Yeah.
Your thoughts
No,
on
I
this,
agree.
Ken?
So far, I've agreed with everyone that has been speaking here. We should accept the table. We should add disclaimer, I call it a disclaimer, just in case somebody comes up with something that really we feel doesn't apply. And I think we should approve it and send it on.
Okay, do we need a motion on that?
I think a consensus is fine. The recommendation really is that
Well,
city
I think
council
we should
adopt the
approve
policy.
what the staff recommendation is.
Yeah, on consensus, well, you can do that. I think what I'd probably prefer to do is bring back a formal resolution where I've tied up all these pieces,
Oh,
so you
fine.
can see the exact
I was
language.
going to ask for that,
Yeah.
so we can see it all
Agreed.
packaged up.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. And in that case, we are ready to move on to item number 9, Community Services Director comments.
Okay, the only update I have is relative to, well, two really. One is on the list here, it's the LAFCO public hearing update. I think I have informed pretty much all of you that the continuance of the public hearing from the 26th of last month was originally planned for the 23rd of this month. However, there was a notice sent by LAFCO staff that they had a concern there wasn't going to be a quorum, and so they've canceled this month's meeting and moved it to March 23rd.
Okay.
And so we have another month to work toward this, and I believe most of you received the updates on what was provided to LAFCO Council, and we'll be standing by to hear if there's any questions in return. In essence, though, we're sort of in a holding pattern until we get there.
Question for you. All the attorneys submitted their point of view to LAFCO's attorney. Will we, or rather, our attorney have a chance to see what the opposition submitted for rebuttal, or is it just going to be in front of that meeting that they hear about it?
I believe what the LAFCO commission required was that the three attorneys work together. Now, your question is whether we get to see what was countered by them.
How they're working together. But I saw the letter from our attorney, and I was thinking, okay, they probably have done something similar, reasonable to think that. Therefore, is our attorney going to be able to answer back, or is it just going to be right there at that meeting, if you know?
I don't think it's going to be right there at that meeting. I think their direction was to work it out beforehand, and then when they come to the meeting, the details of what they've, compromised on or agreed to are spelled out then.
Okay.
But to your question, I think it'd be reasonable for us to ask for a copy of what their attorney has provided, because I'm certain that whatever we've provided has been shared in the other direction.
Sure,
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay, thank you for that. Commissioner Rosen?
I just want, I read the comments by our attorney. I would just like to commend them. That was quite interesting and very nice letter.
Yeah, he did a nice job. I'd say so, too. Okay, well, any further on the left?
Do we know when the public hearing is?
It would be on the 23rd of March. Typically, their meetings are held at 9:30. They have not confirmed that yet. All they've said is that it's been rescheduled to the next meeting on the 23rd. So I don't know the location, and I don't have firm commitment on the time, but usually it's at 9:30.
Thank you.
Once I get it, I will relay that to everyone.
Okay, thank you.
And then my second update is just relative to the appeal of the town center second administrative adjustment relative to the Central Park site that was heard last night by City Council. The ultimate outcome was they determined they wanted a subcommittee of 2 council members, and I believe it was Mayor Pro Tem Leesmeyer and Councilwoman Sobek, to work with city staff and the developer to review the proposed changes to the park plan and come back by March 15th to the full council with their determination of what to do next.
And by changes, you're citing the things that have been eliminated or design factors?
Right, so input back to them about whether to uphold the appeal, I'm sorry, not the appeal, uphold the administrative adjustment letter, to modify that, or to reverse it altogether. Those were the 3 options. So that subcommittee would give the ultimate recommendation to the full council what to do.
The reason I ask is I remember this commission looking at a design. The architect, I believe, was here, wasn't it?
He was.
And we made recommendations, and then that all went by the wayside.
Well, we were told we weren't supposed to.
As the case is. I just was wondering whether they would dig in that deep or things too far in the past.
I think we know that the typical process for any park construction is that this body reviews the conceptual design. That's normal. That's what's supposed to happen. If there's a significant change to that, then my understanding is that it's supposed to come back to this body again for feedback. And that's precisely why I think during some of the proposed changes to that specific plan, it was brought up by this commission of whether that was reasonable and its impacts on the adjacent park was going to be reasonable. That's how that all started. So should the interim city manager ask me to provide input and the outcome from the subcommittee requests a change from what was previously approved, my recommendation to that subcommittee is going to be that it come back to this Parks Commission for feedback before it goes to the full council.
Good.
Excellent.
Then we
Great.
can revisit it.
Hope
Thank
that-
you for that.
Hope that happens.
Okay, and one more thing I'd like to ask for an update on is Audie Murphy Skate Park. I know that we're scheduled for March the 1st. How are things going?
Everything's moving forward. All of the fence posts have been put in this week. All of the fence panels and gates will be put in next week. The camera with loudspeaker will be installed, I believe, the 27th. And the infrared lights have already been ordered, should be here next week. And weather permitting, we'll install them next week. And all the landscaping improvements are in the works too. We had bids due tomorrow for some of the grout and cobble work and some turf removal. So everything's on task. The only other piece is that we have been talking with a nonprofit that goes by the name of Destiny. They're a faith-based organization, but they do a lot of secular work as well. And they have used the skate park in the past to host some of their own events. They do a very good job, and they have good connections with the skate community. And so we've asked to partner with them in delivering some of the competition pieces and promotions for the event on the 1st. So there will be some demonstrations with pro skaters, I don't know how you say scooters, but professional scooter riders, pro skaters, And of course, they'll be active there doing some giveaways, and then there's a scooter shop out of Wildemar that'll be there as well. So we've got a full lineup. I will be sending you more information about, when to arrive and parking and all of those things next week.
Are we keeping the HOA fully informed, so there'll be no surprises for the people who are not happy about this?
We've been telling them via email of all of this. We did make an offer to present to them, essentially what I just shared with you.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything back yet, though.
All right, just wanted to make sure we're staying in contact, even if it's not a big dialogue.
Yes.
Good, thank you. Anything further?
I do have one request from Community Services Director regarding CDBG, and last time we heard from you on an update, and we were informed that there was a delay in the submittal, and that might have held things up. Can you update us? Did that get resolved?
So my conversation with the acting city manager regarding that was we had actually sent over that application via inter-office mail. Apparently, they didn't get to the desk of the person collecting it by the noon deadline, but did get here on the same day. And so I explained that to the active city manager, and he explained that he was going to be encouraging the finance team to still allow that presentation at the upcoming MCAC meeting, so that there was. It seems like such a simple thing, but the request was made, and he said he was going to make that request of finance.
Does the front?
Commissioner Rosen.
I'm sorry, I was.
I'm sorry.
Just a question, probably of Bruni. Do you know when the next MCAC meeting is? Because I received a notice from, I think it was Jennifer, saying that, and she's not
She's not involved with
the
that,
person
no.
involved, but saying that it was canceled.
There's
The
been
MCAC
lots of
meeting was
changes.
canceled.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there have been lots of changes, and we have not been notified of the changes. I've kind of been out of the loop. It's been handled by the finance department and Alan Young, and so we have not received any communication on that.
And let me clarify too. I don't think that the intent was for Alan Yoon to be involved with the administration of CDBG. That might have just been the experience you had that one meeting. So please know that it still rests with the finance department. What we will do, though, is reach out to the finance department again to find out when that meeting is and relay that information to you once we get it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sorry for cutting you off.
That's okay. I heard my answer. Yeah.
You did, okay. Any further discussion? Any other topics? Okay, in that case, let's move on to item 10, Commissioner reports on committee activities. Do we have any?
Go ahead, Rob.
Commissioner
Yes,
Holcomb.
yes, I want to thank you all for the, having the opportunity to participate with Commissioner Rosen in the MCAC. It's interesting getting my feet wet, and I too, it popped into my mind as to why Community Services Department's package, at least the way I perceived it to be, arrived late. So that was a head scratcher for me, but I didn't have all the information that you have, Mr. Lennox. So it's encouraging to see that it may eventually be resubmitted, but who knows? But we'll stand by for the next meeting date on that.
Commissioner Zimmerman.
Okay, thank you. I just want to kind of update everybody. I told Commissioner Rosen about this, but here's a flyer. Last night, I presented to the City Council kind of a low-hanging fruit. It's a project that the Historic Association is encouraging. We want to, sort of like Route 66 in San Bernardino gets a lot of opportunities for car shows and things. And Menifee actually has a Highway 395 had run through here from 1952 to 69. And so we want to do similar to what Temecula, Murrieta, and Paris and Moreno Valley have done. We're kind of the missing link that doesn't have those signs through the center of our city. So I asked our city council if they were on board, and they liked the idea and gave it a thumbs up. It's going to be about $400 in cost to order some signs, so no big deal money-wise, and awesome opportunities down the road. So even though the Parks Commission isn't involved, I wanted to make sure you guys were aware.
Thank you. Commissioner Rosen.
As I told Bill, this is an opportunity for parks to get involved in either a car show or something to do with the antique cars on Route 395, it would bring in a large amount of funding to the city. We really should sit down with the other cities where 395 goes through and see if we can have it run a joint something, all right? And these kinds of things are very popular. They bring in a lot of people who, of course, need hotel space and restaurant space and all the rest of it, which would bring in considerable amount of funding.
Something like a road rally.
Yeah.
Commissioner Holcomb?
Yes, Commissioner Rosen, and so the way you are conceiving it, would it be a city-sponsored event, or would the city just simply be a participant in something like this?
I would recommend that the city sponsor it. Like everything else, it would require a committee to sit down and work it out, but I foresee the kinds of people are there who would want this, and they would come in from all over for something like this. 50s and 60s, absolutely.
We could put this on our agenda for further discussion the next time, which is where I think we're leading Commissioner Zimmerman.
Yeah, and I don't think we need to really discuss this. It's going to happen no matter what. But the opportunities really are endless. I mean, it could be Rotary Club or who knows who, and the city can certainly do events as well. But I just wanted to let you guys know, if you don't mind writing it down, on Saturday, March 18th, the Historic Association is going to have a speaker. His name's Jeffrey Harmon, and Jeffrey Harmon is the Historic Route 395 Association president. So he's the guy that's been working with Moreno Valley and Paris and Temecula and Murrieta to have all these signs installed. He's the one working with me on this. He's going to be speaking at the Historical Association's program meeting that Saturday, March 18th at 9:30 in the morning, and that's going to be held at the Antelope Menifee Rural Center, which is on Hahn Road, just north of Garbani Road. And he'll give a full presentation with a PowerPoint talking about the fact that it was the Three Flags Highway that connected Mexico, United States, and Canada. It went all the way border to border, and the evolution of it all through the from the turn of the century all the way through the 1920s and 30s, 40s, and then when it came through Menifee in the 50s, rerouted from Murrieta and all the way up into Sacramento and to the through Oregon and Washington as well. So anyway, I hope you guys can all attend. Those program events happen every other month, and there's always a really neat topic, so this is just one of the many things that the Historic Association does.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yep.
Let's move on to future agenda requests from commissioners. It sounds like we might have an agenda item discussing things we could do with this, if you want to put that on there.
Let's wait, because this may take a little
Okay.
while.
In that case, any other suggestions or recommendations for commission agenda items? I'd like to ask for one, and that would be signage. You're talking about stenciling the street. Do we have enough signs pointing out where our parks and trails are along the various highways, so that you're coming down the road and say, oh yeah, La Ladera's over there, make a right, that kind of a thing? Something that maybe we should be considering is more signage to draw people into these facilities and give them more awareness of the fact they exist.
Can I chime in on that?
Please.
The city has some of those directional signs for new homes and things like that. Can we add to that, or maybe if there's spot for 6 and they're only using 3, could we say Pete Peterson Park ahead or something like that?
I don't believe those are always funded by the city. Sometimes the developer puts those up. But I interpret what's being proposed as possibly permanent signage. Is that right?
Road signs, I don't know what you'd want to call it. You know, you're driving down the road,
Mhm.
you don't know that park is over there 2 blocks away.
Right. I think what I'm saying, though, is that sign, once it's placed, it doesn't go away anymore.
Right, yes, it would be a permanent indicator.
So typically the housing signs that Commissioner Zimmerman is referring to, those are temporary, because once the development's done, they usually pull them out and take them away. So with a motion and a second, we'd be happy to put that on the agenda for future, no matter what type of sign it is.
I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Okay, so we'll put that on for future agenda discussion. Commissioner Holcomb?
Yes, I have one thing before I forget. Robert, is there any update on the replacement of the Loud Marsh monument sign?
Yes, actually, the order was placed. The PO was still waiting to be cut by Finance Department. We actually went with a different vendor who could match our current standard for about half the cost. So it's a new vendor, which means they have to go through the whole process of becoming a new vendor. It sort of explains the delay, but it is on order.
I think I asked this before. The person who drove into it, is their insurance paying the city back?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
Mhm.
Any further discussion on item 11 or other? Okay, well, we're up to item 12, adjournment, and we are adjourned.
All right.